Hello, sixth graders. Today we're working on percent problems. I'm not going to have you use the calculator today. You're going to be using your multiplication skills, and you're going to be able to see how it's done. Watch closely. The results of the survey about children's weekly allowances are shown at the right. So $0, 30% of the amount of allowance. So 30% of kids make $0 for an allowance. 20% of kids make $1 to $4 for an allowance. 25% of kids make $5 for allowance. 25% of kids make $6 or more. My kids make $0 for allowance, so I'm in the 30 percentile. Anyways, we have to change this. So here's the question. It says Lincoln School has about 500 students. That is the whole, okay? Use the survey results to complete this table. So I want to know what amount had the allowance of $0. So what I'm finding is $0 is 30%. So I'm finding 30% of 500 in order to solve the predicted number of students at Lincoln. Well, you're probably wondering, how do I do this? Of means multiply. 30%, I'm going to change that into 0.30 of 500. So 0.30 times 500. I've got to work that out. I'm going to put 500 on top because it makes sense to have the longer number on top times 0.30. I'm going to work this out. 0 times 0, 0 times 0, 0 times 5 is 0. Place value holder, 3 times 0, 3 times 0, 3 times 15. I'm going to add these up. I have 15000. I have two numbers after the decimal. I'm going to move two numbers, so my answer is 150. So this means 150 equals 30% of 500. That would make sense. Let's do another one. What percent is 20% of 500? So I'm going to take 20% of 500. Once again, 20% is 0.20. Of means multiply 500. Take 500. I'm going to multiply that by 0.20 because that would be 20%. 0 times 0, 0 times 0, 0 times 5 is 0. Place value holder, 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 5 is 10. Add these up, I have 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Two numbers moving the decimal, two numbers moving the decimal. The answer is 100. What you'll notice, kids, is once we're done, and I add up all the numbers in this column, it should equal 500. That's how I'll check my work. What amount of students paid $5 for an allowance? 25%. So I'm finding 25% of 500. You can always press pause and check your math on this because it's really important that I could possibly make a mistake and you could find out where that mistake is. 0.25 times 500. I'm going to take 500. I'm going to multiply that by 0.25. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. Got a place value holder here. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Go ahead and add these up. I get a 0, 0, 5, 2, 1. Two numbers after the decimal, two numbers after the decimal. The answer is 125, is 25% of 500. What percent is $6 or more is 25%, is $6 or more. Now, am I going to work this out again, or am I going to realize that 25% was just written here, so this is automatically 125? Now, if we were to work this out, it should equal 500. I have 150 plus 100 plus 125 plus 125. Let's check our work. I know 150 plus 100 equals 250. And I know 125 plus 125 is 250. And I know 250 plus 250 equals 500. So yes, they all add up. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Three results of the survey. The sixth grade, so we have the same percentages at the top. $0 is 30%, 1 to 4 is 20. The sixth grade at Lincoln has about 60 students. Use this survey to complete the results. So what is 30% of 60? So 30% of 60. Well, 0.30 times 60. That's 60 times 0.30. You work it out. 0 times 0, 0 times 6 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. I have two numbers after the decimal, two numbers after the decimal. The answer is 18 for 30%. Let's move on. What is 20% of 60? 20% of 60. Well, this will be 0.20 times 60. Putting 60 on top times 0.20. 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 6 is 0. Place value holder. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 6 is 12. Add these up, 1200, 1,200. But I have two numbers after the decimal, two numbers after the decimal. My answer is 12. 25% of 60, 0.25 times 60 would be 25% of 60. 60 times 0.25. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 6 is 30. Place value holder. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 6 is 12. Add these up. 0, 0, 5, 1. Two numbers after the decimal, two numbers after the decimal. My answer is 15. And if that's 15, this is 15. Let's check our work. 18 plus 12 is 30. 15 plus 15 is 30. 30 plus 30 is 60. My total amount of students is 60. It works out perfect. You just have to know how to change a percent into a decimal, which is pretty easy because every percent is the first two numbers after a decimal. Rule of thumb for changing number of meters to yards is to add the number of meters to 10% of the number of the meters. For example, 5 meters is about 5 plus 10% of 5, or 5.5 yards. 10 meters is about 10 plus 10% of 10, or 11 yards. Okay. 3 meters is about 3 plus 10% of 3, or how many yards? Well, let's take a look here. I have to add 3, but what is 10% of 3? 10% of 3. 10% would be written like 0.10 times 3. 0.10 times 3. 0. 3 times 1 is 3. There's two numbers after the decimal, so two numbers of the decimal. So I have to add 3 plus 0.30, which would be 3.30, or 3.3 also works. So let's do the math. If 10% of 3 was 0.3, 10% of 8 is 0.8. 8 plus 0.8 would be 8.8. Easy. For some reason, I feel like I need to show you. 8 would be 8.0. 0.8 would be 0.8. If I line up the decimals, 0.8 is 8. 8 plus 0 is 8. Move down the decimal, 8.8. 20 meters is about 20 plus 10% of 20. Let's see, what would be 10% of 20? Well, 0.10 times 20 would be what? 0, 0, place value holder, 0, 2. Add this up, I got 200. I have two numbers after the decimal. I have two numbers after the decimal. The answer is 2. 10% of 20 is 2. So 20 plus 2 equals 22. Hopefully this extra practice helped a little bit. Keep in mind when you're having to find a percent of a number, you have to make sure that you change that percent into a decimal. Hopefully this helped, kids, and good luck with your math.